Hello and welcome to our free 30-minute training on automatic disqualifiers, as well as some basic information on what you need to know to pass your DOT medical exam. My name is Aisha Addison, owner of London Addison. I am a certified registered nurse practitioner with a Master's of Science in Nursing, and I am also a certified FMCSA medical examiner. Here at London Addison, educating employers and employees to reduce liability and prevent injuries is our top priority. We want you to pass your DOT medical exam on the first day and consecutively without the anxiety or fear of being taken off the road. We also want you to stay healthy and safe on the road. Most importantly, we want you to show up prepared. Upon completion of this training, you will have answers to the following questions. What is the FMCSA? What are basic acronyms you need to know and understand? Who needs an FMCSA medical exam? What are the automatic disqualifiers you should know about? What are the red flags? What to bring to your exam and what you should avoid prior to your exam. So the FMCSA is the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, which is also the lead federal government agency within the United States Department of Transportation. The FMCSA is responsible for regulating and providing safety oversight of commercial motor vehicles. The FMCSA partners with industry, safety advocates, state and local governments to keep our nation's roadways safe and improve commercial motor vehicle safety. So let's begin by defining the difference between interstate and intrastate CDL drivers. So the main difference is interstate CDL drivers drive a commercial motor vehicle across state lines, whereas intrastate CDL drivers only drive within a state's boundaries and do not fit the description of interstate commerce. The FMCSA regulates interstate commercial operations, including the drivers, trucks, and buses the drivers operate, the motor carrier, and the transportation of hazardous materials. A safety risk in any one of these commercial operations can endanger the safety and health of the public. As far as drivers go, approximately 6 to 7 million commercial motor vehicle drivers are required by law to comply with the FMCSA physical qualification standards. What this means is that an estimated 3 to 4 million physical examinations must be performed annually, with the demand increasing every year. In addition to medical fitness for duty certification, other regulations affecting the CMV driver include drug and alcohol testing, record keeping, and hours of service. Now let's talk FMCSA crash rates for 2019. A total of 2,734 fatal crashes involving trucks and buses were reported in the United States in 2019. 3,087 people died in those crashes, according to the preliminary report released in January 2020. Another 60,818 people were hurt in crashes involving large trucks and buses. A total of 122,331 vehicles were damaged or wrecked. So why is this training so important, you ask? This training is important because this training saves lives, reduces company liability, and will keep you driving without endangering yourself or others. The FMCSA has a mission. The mission is saving lives by reducing crashes, injuries, and fatalities involving CMV transportation through education, innovation, regulation, enforcement, financial assistance, partnerships, and full accountability. In 2014, certified medical examiners became a part of this mission, and the NRCME, which is the National Registry of Certified Medical Examiners, was introduced into the certification mandates. As a certified medical examiner, I can assure you that this training was not developed just to educate you about how to pass your DOT medical exam. This training is to educate you about your health and how taking your health seriously can save your life and other lives. So the NRCMA, which is again the National Registry of Certified Medical Examiners, was again designed to improve the DOT physical exam process. And it was also designed to ensure that certified medical examiners understood the FMCSA regulations and guidance for issuing medical certificates. Well, about 4 years ago, on September 14th, 2016, the American Transportation Research Institute, also called the ATRI, and the Mayo Clinic jointly surveyed over 900 commercial drivers, 300 motor carriers, and 1,200 certified medical examiners to obtain more information and a better understanding of the impacts that the NRCMA has had on the trucking industry since its implementation in 2014. The results? 6% of drivers reported spending 20 minutes or less with their certified medical examiner, with 6.5% of those drivers spending 10 minutes or less, which is an insufficient time to complete all required processes of a DOT physical. Drivers certified by chiropractors were more likely to have important medical checks submitted. Among the 5.9% of drivers who were not issued a medical certificate on the day of their physical exam, 22.6% cited having a medical condition that required treatment before certificate issuance as the reason. I can tell you guys from working in this field that since 2014, when the NRCMA implementation was launched, there has been so much more confusion, frustration, and many misconceptions. Motor carriers still have significant concerns related to the medical certification process, including requests by the CMEs for additional medical documentation, causing certification delays, driver confusion on how regulatory changes impact the ability to hold a valid medical certificate, and concerns with the competency of the certified medical examiners. Remarks from Mayo Clinic and the Department of Transportation further confirm the frustrations with this process. The data shows a polarity in quality of medical examiners, said Clayton T. Cowell, chair of Mayo Clinic's Division of Preventative Occupational and Aerospace Medicine. Those examiners who are performing only minimal examinations may have received substandard training or are not taking their role seriously. The inconsistency in quality of exams provided to our drivers creates a real challenge for us as a fleet, where in one terminal location, a driver may be required to undergo extensive tests and provide additional documentation prior to getting a medical certificate. Drivers in other locations are expedited through with cursory exams, said Victor Hart, Director of Safety for DOT Transportation. Clayton goes on to say, the key seems to strike a balance between meeting the regulatory intent of the examinations and communicating with drivers ahead of time to minimize confusion regarding the need to document clinical stability. This is particularly true for drivers with multiple or complex medical conditions, from whom medical examiners do need more documentation in order to make a certification decision. So what is the issue, and why did the FMCSA enact more stringent guidelines in 2014? The issue is the risk, guys. The intent of these regulations is to establish whether a driver has a disease or a disorder that interferes with the ability to safely operate a commercial motor vehicle, specifically increased risk for sudden death or increased risk for the onset of gradual or sudden incapacitation, thus endangering public safety. Risk is the probability of an event occurring within a certain period of time. Determining an acceptable risk is both a medical and a societal decision. So now we're going to dive into just some basic understanding of federal regulations. So the Code of Federal Regulations is also called the CFR, and this is the codification of the general and permanent rules and regulations published by the executive departments and agencies of the federal government of the United States. The CFR is divided into 50 titles that represent broad areas subject to federal regulation. Title 49 is where you can find the Code of Federal Regulations for the transportation industry. So who must undergo a FMCSA medical exam, also known as a DOT medical exam? Well, per Title 49 CFR 390.5, medical certification in accordance with FMCSA physical qualification standards is required when the driver is operating a commercial vehicle in the interstate commerce that has a combined gross vehicle weight or weight rating of 10,001 pounds or more, is designed or used to transport 9 to 15 passengers, including the driver, for compensation, is designed or used to transport 16 or more passengers, including the driver, whether for compensation or not, and finally, who transports hazardous materials in quantities that require place carding under the hazardous material regulations. Also, when a driver returns from an illness or injury that interferes with driving ability, the driver must undergo a medical examination. So here's what you need to know about the physical qualification standards for commercial motor vehicles. Those regulations can be found in Title 49 CFR 391.41-391.49. CMV drivers who are unsure of whether they qualify to drive should refer to this federal regulation. So Title 49 CFR 391.43 describes the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration medical examiner's responsibilities in order to determine if CMV drivers meet the physical standards, are medically fit for duty, and qualify for a medical examiner certificate. So up next, I have actually given you guys a list of what the medical examiner requirements are, just in case you guys were wondering or you wanted to know. Here they are. So as a medical examiner, we are required to fully understand what the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations are and the related guidance. We have to participate in a required FMCSA approved training. And after that training is complete, we have to pass a certification exam. We also have to register on the National Registry System to become a certified medical examiner, keep National Registry accounts up to date, and transmit results of all commercial motor vehicle driver exams performed to the FMCSA via the National Registry System. So what are CDL holders required to do? As a CDL holder, you must determine whether you operate in interstate or intrastate commerce and are accepted or not accepted from either the federal or state requirements. You must certify to your SDLA, which is your state driver's license agency, that you fall into one of the 4 operation categories listed below. So you have interstate non-accepted, interstate accepted, intrastate non-accepted, and intrastate accepted. Interstate non-accepted, that means you are interstate non-accepted driver and must meet the federal DOT medical card requirements. Interstate accepted means you are interstate accepted driver and do not have to meet the federal DOT medical card requirements. Intrastate non-accepted means that you are required to meet the medical requirements for your state. And intrastate accepted means that you do not have to meet the medical requirements for your state. Okay, now we're going to get into some what to bring basics. This is very important for exam preparedness, and I want to make sure that you guys just have at least the basics of what to bring. I do go into more detail in my other training, my full course, and it does go into specifics about what to bring based on your chronic medical conditions. But for this training, I'm just going to make sure you guys know the basics of what to bring. And first up, we're going to talk about the medical examination report form, also called the MCSA-5875 form. And that form can be found on fmcsa.dot.gov. It can also be found on the website www.londonaddison.com. Under resources, I have the electronic version as well as a downloadable PDF that you can print out. Make sure that you complete the health history portion of the exam on page 1 and 2. Be sure to check all boxes and sign the completed portion of your exam. All drivers also need to bring a complete list of your current medications, including the dosage, your provider's names, and contact information if you have it. If you don't, try to get most of it together before you come on the day of your exam, because you never know if your medical examiner is going to need that information to make a phone call, ask for a fax, those things. So the next thing you want to make sure you bring is your photo ID for verification. So be prepared to provide your photo ID. You can have a driver's license. That would be great. It has to have your picture on it, passport, or other form of state ID to verify your identity. Don't forget to bring your glasses. I've had many people come into my office for their exam forgetting to wear their glasses. That is very difficult. If you wear prescription glasses and you don't bring them to your exam, it's very difficult to pass your vision exam. Also, contact lenses. If you wear contact lenses to drive, you need to bring your contact lenses to your exam. And lastly, your hearing aids. If you wear a hearing aid in both ears or in one ear, you must bring your hearing aids to your exam. You will be required to pass a vision and a hearing test. So make sure you don't forget these items. So now we're going to get into some disqualifying conditions, starting with hearing loss. Hearing loss can be a disqualifying condition. The inability to pass the forced whisper test at not less than 5 feet or hearing loss greater than 40 decibels on audiometry can be disqualifying. You will be disqualified when both tests are failed, with or without hearing aids. There is a driver exemption, and you may be granted a federal hearing exemption if medically fit for duty in all other categories of the physical exam. But you will be pulled off the road that day if you cannot pass your hearing exam and you do not have a driver federal hearing exemption with you on the date of exam. And next, let's talk about monocular vision, or your visual acuity test. So another reason that you could be pulled off the road is if you fail your visual acuity test. So you must have a distant visual acuity of at least 20 to 40 with or without corrective lenses. And you must be able to see at least 20 to 40 with both eyes together, at least 20/40 with the right eye, and at least 20/40 with the left eye. Okay, so if you fail your visual acuity test on the date of your exam, you will be pulled off the road. I have had instances where people just forgot to wear their glasses, so they had to run and get their glasses and come back to their exam, or they brought the wrong glasses. So what happened in that case is they didn't realize that they had the wrong prescription than what was prescribed to them at their last ophthalmology appointment, and they brought the wrong glasses. So as soon as they went and got the last glasses that were prescribed to them, they were able to pass their test. Okay, so just be mindful. Always bring your glasses if you need them to drive. Okay, another disqualification is monovision. So monovision is automatically disqualifying. Use of a contact lens in one eye for distant visual acuity and another lens in the other eye for near vision is not acceptable, nor are telescopic lenses acceptable for driving a commercial motor vehicle. Again, there is an exemption. A driver with monocular vision may be able to get a federal vision exemption certificate if medically fit for duty in all other categories of the physical exam. So blood pressure is a huge one, guys. Blood pressure can be automatically disqualifying if your blood pressure is greater to or equal than 180 over 110. When the blood pressure is less than 140 over 90, you can return to driving, but you can only then be certified for 6-month intervals. Blood pressure is huge, guys, so make sure you're checking your blood pressure if you have hypertension. Make sure that your medications are working. Make sure that your blood pressure is consistently under control prior to coming for your DOT medical exam. Because if you sit down and you're a little bit anxious, or you think you're going to fail sometimes, or white coat syndrome, sometimes that can drive your blood pressure all the way up. And then you'll end up with a 3-month card, which means you have to come back in 3 months and get your blood pressure checked again to make sure it's below 140 over 90. So long story short, if you have hypertension, just make sure it's under control. Another disqualifying condition is implantable cardioverter defibrillators. This is an absolutely automatic disqualifying condition. The defibrillator is designed to correct problems when they occur, but it still is a huge safety risk. So it is an automatic disqualifier. Another automatic disqualifier is peripheral neuropathy. A diagnosis of peripheral neuropathy, and it's automatically disqualifying. because the condition is characterized by decreased sensation and numbness in the lower extremities and feet, which can cause loss of control over the commercial motor vehicle, which is a huge safety risk. So that is also a disqualifying condition. Okay, hypertrophic or restrictive cardiomyopathy. Both of these medical conditions are automatically disqualifying conditions due to the risk of sudden incapacitation. So epilepsy is another disqualifying condition. The U.S. Department of Transportation allows drivers with a history of epilepsy who have been seizure-free and off medication for 10 years to obtain a commercial driver's license. But drivers with a current diagnosis of epilepsy and have ongoing seizures or take seizure medication are automatically disqualified from operating a CMV. Another one is Meniere's disease. The Conference on Neurological Disorders and Commercial Drivers Report recommends disqualification when there is a diagnosis of Meniere's disease because this disease actually manifests in sudden attacks of vertigo, hearing loss, or noise in the ears. This means that a person is definitely not safe to drive. Narcolepsy is another one. The guidelines recommend disqualifying a CMV driver with a diagnosis of narcolepsy regardless of treatment because of the likelihood of excessive daytime somnolence. It takes only a few seconds of intense sleepiness or loss of muscle control at the wheel for an accident to occur. Now let's talk about unauthorized use of narcotics and illegal drugs. A driver cannot take a controlled substance or prescription medication without a prescription from a licensed practitioner. If a driver uses a drug identified in Title 21 CFR 1308.11 or any other substance such as amphetamine, a narcotic, or any other habit-forming drug, the driver is medically unqualified. The prescribing doctor can write that the driver is safe to be a commercial driver while taking the medication. However, in this case, the medical examiner may, but does not have to certify the driver. Marijuana, even if medically prescribed. Under the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations, a person is not physically qualified to drive a commercial motor vehicle if he or she uses any Schedule I controlled substance such as marijuana. Legalization of marijuana use by states and other jurisdictions also has not modified the application of U.S. Department of Transportation drug testing regulations in 49 CFR Parts 40 and 382. So now we're going to jump into some red flags, and I just gave you guys a few red flags that I see all the time when people walk into my office. It's an automatic red flag. So the first one I already told you guys about, and that's coming to your exam without your glasses or your contact lenses and expecting to pass the Snellen chart exam. I've seen it over and over again. Person forgets their glasses, thinks they can still pass, they end up failing. So if you have decreased visual acuity on Snellen chart exam and you fail to bring your glasses or contact lenses, that is a huge red flag. Typically, people also, like I said, forget to update their eye prescriptions or forget which glasses were the most updated prescription. So just be very careful about that. Your visual acuity, again, must be 20/40 on the day of your exam, or you may not qualify for a DOT card on that day. And the other one I already spoke to you guys about was uncontrolled hypertension. So if you come in to the office with uncontrolled hypertension, you will not get a DOT card on the day of your exam unless it's not as bad to the point where you qualify for a 3-month card. And that what that does is that gives you time to go to your primary care doctor and have your medications adjusted and make sure that your blood pressure is okay. So there is the 3-month card, but after that, you do not qualify to drive. If I give you a 3-month card and you come back and your blood pressure is still not 140/90 or below, then you are disqualified from driving. Okay. And cardiovascular disorders with no cardiac clearance, huge. I see it all the time. If you have a cardiovascular disorder, at minimum, you're going to need a clearance from your cardiac specialist. You also typically need a cardiac stress test and echocardiogram. Annually, sometimes biannually, It depends on your cardiac condition. I do get into this information in more detail in my full training. I'll give you exactly how often you need to get certain testing done based on your medical condition. But just know that if you have a cardiovascular disorder, you're going to need a cardiac clearance. And most likely you're going to need evidence that you've been tested. Your heart has had a cardiac stress test or echocardiogram or something to that nature within the last 1 to 2 years. Another huge red flag is obstructive sleep apnea. People come into the office all the time, obstructive sleep apnea with no compliance report. A compliance report is mandatory if you have obstructive sleep apnea. And what that needs to show is that you are using your CPAP machine at least 4 hours per night on 70% of the nights. So 70% is the minimum compliance standard. So when we look at your CPAP report, we're looking at 70% compliance. So make sure if you have obstructive sleep apnea that you have that compliance report in hand on the day of your exam. Any type of psychological disorder, whether it be anxiety or depression, you need to make sure that you have medical clearance from your specialist. You also need to make sure that if you have medications that could possibly make you drowsy, that you also have evidence or clearance from your medical provider saying that you've been on these medications for years and that you don't have any side effects to those medications that would cause a sudden incapacitation while driving. Okay. Controlled substances or sedating medications. Again, medications that may cause sedation or sleepiness are automatic red flags. So you want to make sure that you have medical records and clearance from your treating provider. It's required. So lastly, I just wanted to give you guys some tips for prior to your exam. You want to make sure that you, number one, avoid large meals, sweets, and carbs. You do have to take a urine test that checks to see if you have any diabetic warning signs. So avoid intaking large meals, sweets, carbohydrates before the day of your exam. It can cause an intake in the sugar in your urine and raise questions again about diabetic warning signs. Try to eat a light, healthy meal before you go in for your exam, okay? Secondly, try to avoid caffeine, sodium, and energy drinks. This is huge, especially if you have hypertension or if somebody told you were borderline hypertension in the past. You want to make sure that you do not come in after having 2 or 3 Red Bulls, not even 1 Red Bull. You don't want to come in after drinking black coffee. You just want to try to keep, again, the caffeine, the sodium, and the energy drinks down to a minimum. It can raise your blood pressure and put you at risk for jeopardizing your exam. And lastly, try to remain calm, especially if you have white coat syndrome. A lot of people think that some of us medical examiners are here to try to fail you guys. Here at London Addison, we're all for you guys passing. We really want you to pass. We want you to be calm. And that's why we are teaching you exactly what you need to bring to your exam so that you don't have to be nervous about failing when you get to the day of your exam and you come into the office. But for those that have white coat syndrome especially, just try to remain calm. Take some deep breaths because you don't want white coat syndrome to drive your blood pressure up again. So just try to focus on taking slow, even breaths. And again, remain calm. We're here to help. Okay, so we're just about out of time. Hopefully you guys were able to grasp in this 30 minutes, just the basics on what you need to bring to your exam and what to avoid on the day of your exam. Also, just some basic understanding of the regulations and some of the acronyms. Also, hopefully you guys were able to get just a basic understanding of some of the frustrations that have been going on since 2014. We do have a more detailed training called Show Up Prepared, How to Pass Your DOT Exam on the First Day. And that training will give you detailed information on what to bring based on your medical history, annual, biannual, and biennial testing based on chronic medical conditions, what DOT regulations you need to know to pass the physical qualification standards, specifics on what is tested on your analysis, how to apply for a diabetes, vision, or hearing exemption, and skills performance evaluation qualifications and how to apply. Here at London Addison, we really look forward to training you on exactly how to pass your exam, exactly what you need to bring, and exactly how to remain healthy and stay safe on the road. We look forward to passing you guys and keeping you guys driving. Make sure you register for our course. You can find the registration link on www.londonAddison.com. Let us know how we can further support you. Email us at aa@londonaddison.com. And for additional information, make sure to visit us at www.londonaddison.com.